Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Career Demystification from Adaptivity. Today we have the chance in these crazy times of, quarantine, lockdown, etc. to still get to talk to really big guys. We have in front of us one of the most important person for Frasers, which is one of the largest group for real estate and property and warehousing in Thailand. And this guy, Sup, which I have in front of me, is actually doing the lead digital transformation as a chief digital officer of the group. So please welcome Sup, and maybe you can share a little bit about you and what you do at Frasers.
Sure. Thank you, John. Well, first I want to say, John, thank you for the opportunity. Big shout out to everybody listening, especially everybody that's following Adaptivity. I think it's going to be a great podcast. So real quick, update on my background. So I'm accountable for a couple things within the Frasers Property Thailand group. So technically, I'm the chief digital officer. And what that really means, what's the difference between a chief digital officer compared to a CTO or CIO? So a chief digital officer, my main focus is around the transformation or the incorporation of digital services into new business models per se, right?
Right.
And as a property firm, obviously, our main business model, if you may, is kind of, the lease approach, right? So you rent a property from us. But we have a strong belief that things are being disrupted. And we feel that we need to go beyond the square meter.
Right.
So my main role is to look at different business models. And in order to achieve that, we basically have an innovation team that does that, all right? In addition to that, I also manage, the robots business. So we do have a robots business here in Thailand.
Wow, how cool is that?
Side. And we'll share more about that to you guys later on. So that's here. Yeah, that's here already. No longer in the movies. Along with, I also do the data center stuff as well. But that's another topic for another day. But yeah, that's a quick kind of overview. Yeah.
This is perfect, and this is exactly why we wanted to have you on this call, because today, and I think what we're gonna have with a couple of next episode on that series is really demystifying, meaning showing that what we've seen in the movies about AI and robotics is maybe not as scary as Terminator.
Without doubt,
and it's maybe not as futuristic as 2050 when we will be old with gray hairs. And it's actually maybe already there sometimes. And it's actually maybe careers that are pretty cool to do and that are pretty accessible, in fact. So this whole series will be interviewing people from the airline industry, for the retail industry, for the healthcare industry, for the recruitment industry, and even the defense industry. And we will go through all these new careers that somehow are evolving to become more and more digital as we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. And as actually, it's not just entering, it's already there sometime. And it's just more for us, people, individuals, to realize that, to wake up and be able to grasp these opportunities, right? So there's this notion of adapting, right? We people need to grasp this opportunity, and for that we need to adapt our skill sets, our mindsets. And this is really what Adaptivity is about. Helping, hopefully a couple of thousand, hopefully millions of people to adapt to this new digital era, to digital literacy. So this is great. Thank you for this quick brief. Maybe tell us really, okay, so now we understand you're working as a digital officer and you have different teams under you. So how many people are working in Frasers as a group with all the different entities, right? And because you're kind of the IT guy, but at a bigger scale, right?
Yeah.
So if you permit me, because it's not being an IT guy anymore, right? It's actually, no IT is driving revenues, right? So the digital transformation have shifted to be like the tech guys on the back who just, repair the computer, to be the centerpiece of the whole business. So tell us a bit about the scale of that in terms of Frasers, number of employees, subsidies, and maybe revenue, so we can understand how important it is.
Sure. So obviously the Frasers Property Group, right, is part of a bigger global footprint. All right. So we are in about 24 different countries, and we're in about 174 cities across the world. We're everywhere on every single continent other than the US, other than North and South America, basically, right? But we are in Europe, we are across Asia, we are in Australia on that. So as a property firm, if I start off with that, we have different asset classes in property, right? The traditional aspect, and I'll touch upon how that is changing with the whole digital transformation. So in terms of the traditional space, properties are split between, your house, which is residential, where you kind of work, which is your commercial, where you might be traveling, which is kind of the hotel or hospitality, right? But at the same time, in terms of the warehouse and the factories, we kind of call that the industrial estate as well, right? And then finally, where you kind of go shopping, not so much anymore, mostly on e-commerce, but the retail space, right? So with all that, right, at least for the Thai business, we are about 3 billion baht in net income, actually, in profits, basically.
Wow.
So it is a very healthy business per se, because it's property. And bigger picture, just to let everybody know, property is actually the world's largest asset class. Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right, because property continues to increase in valuation. So reference cases, let's say you add up all the revenue of all the big 5 players, right? Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, for example, right? Their total 2018 revenue completely, right? Collectively, it only represents no more than 1% of the entire valuation of the property sector globally, okay? Wow. So what that means basically is that there's a huge opportunity to digitize and monetize all the data that's being collected in that property space, which I'll share with you in a bit, right? And that's part of the reason, a lot of people talk about fintech, a lot of people talk about e-commerce and so on and so forth. But I really felt that there was a huge opportunity for Fraser because Fraser is a global footprint, number one. So it has scale. And it's in a market that hasn't really deployed or adopted so much technology, right? Because it doesn't need to, per se, right? Because it's property, right? It's growing, so on and so forth on that. So the size of the business is quite huge. It's quite profitable in itself. But the reason that we were looking in terms of digital transformation, right? As you know, we've seen things like Airbnb, right? Where it's starting to come in and disrupt in the hospitality space. So we felt that, okay, this is a good timing. Going back to what you were saying earlier, John, about, being adaptive, right? And using tools and technology, it's all about one thing, right? It's all about timing, right? And you were talking about robots and so on and so forth, and you're spot on. The technology itself has always been there. But again, it's about timing, right? And this whole COVID thing, which we'll get into in a little bit, is in a way, not only driven change, but it's a crisis. So when you change, there's 2 triggers, right? There's being adaptive, and that's kind of proactive in a way, or it's crisis, right? And crisis means you're forced to change completely, right, in order to survive. So a bigger picture to answer your question first. So it's a great real estate firm. It's very profitable. Size of the people within the company. So we're looking collectively within Thailand itself. I'll just speak for Thailand, a little bit over 1,000 people on that. Because again, it's a geographically distributed business across the entire country on that. In terms of the IT footprint, we have yield to date right now, probably around 50 people related to technology. But that will grow immensely in the next kind of 6-9 months, especially in the data center business, the robotics business, and so on and so forth on that. But that's a quick overview of, I guess, the look and feel of the company first. Yeah,
perfect. Thank you. So now we really grasp how big is this organization. Maybe we keep in touch if you want to hire me in some point.
No doubt, you never know.
I'm joking, but actually many of our community people will be maybe interested into working in this prop tech industry. And honestly, for me as a personal, investor, maybe I need to reconsider doing more things with you guys in this property tech. Because you mentioned it, right? 1% of the asset class globally is just huge. Right. And this is somehow not digitally sexy yet, even though this is, most of the assets in the planet. So definitely an industry worth to look at for prop tech. So if we think a little bit further, into we were talking macro, Now let's talk about micro a little bit, right?
Mm.
So digital and robotics and everything technology powered is aiming to somehow create efficiency into existing products and clients relationships, right? So for you and for Fraser as a group, where have you seen these being implemented to save the company money and create efficiencies in terms of how people work and make them save time as well as making the workplace more enjoyable and the property more safe? Maybe share a little bit about these concrete activities.
Sure. So I think that the timing of the question is also very good, right? So I'll focus on the immediate kind of landscape that COVID in a way has shaped. We'll talk about that as the core use case, and then we can kind of branch out in terms of other use cases that were already in existence in a way, right? So in the property sector, kind of what I mentioned before, it's split into kind of 4 or 5 different asset class, right? Residential, commercial, logistics, retail, hospitality, right? But what's happened with COVID, or what's going to continue to happen in the post-COVID world, is that these asset classes are being blurred, right? So before, again, you would stay at home, right? Come to the office, right? And maybe go to the warehouse to get your inventory or whatever. But today with COVID, your house now is also your office. And if you're in the e-commerce space or you're a merchant, in a way, it's become kind of a mini distribution center or a mini inventory house. Okay?
Right.
So the post-COVID, these 3 different asset classes now have come together on that, right? At the same time, if you look into the retail space, right? Traditionally, again, you have 2 ways of shopping: purely online, and somebody comes and delivers you the package, or into a retail store, right? What's happening now is that these 2 worlds are merging into a third option, where people want to come back to the shopping malls because they've been home for a couple of weeks and months and so on and so forth, but they want to feel safe. So there's a lot of talk about in-mall delivery, where you come in, you order something, you might just pick it up because you don't want to wait per se 1 or 2 days for the delivery, right? You really want to buy it, but you don't want to spend too much time because of social distancing, for example, right? So these asset classes, number one, are coming together, right? So as they come together, the ecosystem or the interactions between humans are changing, right? So that's the timing that's allowing, from our perspective, massive interest in robots. Okay. Now, if we talk about, so the timing is happening right now. That's why I think when we talk about being adaptive and so on and so forth, this crisis has pushed this requirement to have robots in play.
Yeah, it accelerated it.
Exactly, without a doubt. So if we talk about the acceleration of robots now, taking a step back, what is actually a robot? Okay. So on the technical aspect, okay, people have, as you say, the Hollywood version of, Terminator and so on and so forth, right? Technically, that is a robot, but if you take a step back, a robot is actually an IoT device, okay? It's a device that has sensors. But what it's different from a device that's like a light bulb and so on and so forth is that it actuates, meaning that it can influence its environment. So a light bulb would just shine in a way, right? That's it. But a robot will move around within the physical environment, right? So it's a moving IoT in a way, okay? So the timing of this has led us to do a lot of research and development. We're making a couple of robots that we're in the process of deploying in the month of May. And what we're calling this robot, because this month, we're building it right now. We're building it right now because of the situation, right? Yeah. And 3D printing, all that type of stuff. We can talk more about that as well. We're using that as well, right? Because of the whole supply chain issues. But given the different types of use cases that are coming to play, the robots, it's a hardware, right? We have to design the robot in such a way that it can be deployed in multiple requirements and interact with different types of users, right? So what we're doing is that we're building what we call a Lego robot, okay? So imagine your phone to be a platform and you want an application, you just download the application, right? So it's a platform. We're doing the same thing. So the robot we're building is based on what we call an autonomous vehicle first. Okay, so imagine a Tesla that's moving around, right? Same concept, okay? A robot needs a navigation system for it to detect and move around and determine how to interact with its surrounding, right? Whether it's a physical pillar or a person, right? So you need a navigation system. But once it moves around, what is it trying to interact with you with? So we have about 3-4 use cases we're working on. Number one, we're working on a UVC robot. Okay, so basically what it does is that it's a robot that has UVC light. And UVC light projects a wavelength of about 264 nanometers that basically kills 99% from the research and from the interactions we have with different partners of germs and viruses, right? So this is now of high interest to basically disinfect locations that might be infected with COVID, right?
Right.
Which
That's
is
very
also
timely,
right. So and it's also very so technology has always been there in terms of the UV lights. The UV lights were in the past used to basically disinfect water, or even air in your room and so on and so forth. But it was never really mounted on a robot, right?
Yeah.
Because
to make it mobile.
Exactly, right? So we're doing that as one Lego piece, right? The second thing we're doing is that we're also then putting AI on top of the robot, okay? So we're using an actual camera. We're doing OCR to recognize different letters and so on and so forth and different objects that are happening. And then we're using that to detect if a person or an object could be a security risk within the premise itself, right? So use case number one is kind of UVC. Use case number two is a security robot that will do the patrolling, right?
Okay.
The third one we're doing is that as part of the camera, we're doing an add-on onto the camera as a thermal camera. So in Thailand, as you know, when you go into a shopping mall or even 7-Eleven today, you need somebody that will stand there and shoot kind of one of those like thermometer guns to your head, right?
Yeah, right.
Going forward, you won't need to do that,
day.
right? Going forward, you won't need to do that. So basically, all these kind of use cases, we're building a robot, number one, to adapt to the new landscape, which is basically to help make the landscape safe. Number two is around security. And number three is around the whole kind of COVID situation, that we have a mobile camera that's detecting the actual human being along with the thermal scan as well. So it's also more engaging and more customer friendly on that, right? And going back to your question, so how does that help us kind of reduce costs and generate revenue, right? So number one, the security camera obviously reduces our security guards. And we've actually deployed this already in terms of one of our site. And we're expecting at least a 30% cost reduction within 1 year on that, right? By replacing security guards with a robot on that. In terms of the UVC robot itself, we feel that obviously is now become a requirement in terms of when companies and retail places, hotels, hospitals, schools open up. They're going to need this as, if you may, kind of a customer requirement before anybody enters their premise again on that.
Yeah, exactly. Just on this point, right? I was reading this article on the MIT review, and there are very funny quotes, which was, a few months ago we were scared that all the robots will take our jobs, and now it's almost that we wish they had taken it all already.
Exactly.
Because when you go to the shopping mall, you would like this to be run by robots, so there's social distancing that is possible. And now it's just not happening. So all these shopping malls are closed, and so many industry are impacted, because I still need to buy water, I still need to buy food, I still need to buy sportswear or whatever, but I just can't go to this shop because it's run by actual humans. So I just cannot go there. But in the UK, they were showcasing this food chain, which have created robots to somehow put products on the shelves. So you don't need humans to put products on the shelves anymore. And that way they can run the shop even with the social distancing. And then it was like, whoa, this is really impressive, because on one hand, I really don't want the robot to take my friend's jobs, or maybe my cousin's job, who is a cashier. But on the other hand, with this situation, we still need to run the shop, right? And we're gonna have to make a big choice on that. And in the same time, I asked my cousin, is there any jobs you can make with the robot? Right? So instead of doing you would, instead of updating the shelves yourself in the shop and putting the boxes one by one, are you okay to maybe learn to control the robot, right? Because the robot is very stupid. So this is a bit of the two sides, right? Maybe let's navigate a little bit into this, because you're saying you're saving 30% of security guards, right? And many people will be like, oh my God, you're firing people. But maybe you can talk about the other type, right? On the other hand, what are the jobs that you're creating? And I think that would be super interesting, because with COVID situation, digital transformation is moving forward, and that's also creating jobs. So maybe share about that a little bit.
Without doubt. So we see 3 types of jobs that are emerging, or even more specifically, 3 types of jobs that we are looking for over a period of time to hire or train or repivot people, right?
Okay.
Number 1 is what we're calling, for the lack of a better phrase, is the robot driver, right? Like the drone drivers, basically, that everybody's aware of. Because we want to, obviously, over a period of time, make sure that the robots are autonomous. But obviously, as everybody knows, it'll take time from the AI for us to learn, especially in an open retail space. There's just a lot of activity coming in, right?
Right.
So it's more like semi-intelligent, right? So we need people to be able to drive the robot. And we are building, if you may, kind of a command center, an operation center. Okay, so in terms of the jobs that we're actually creating right now, the first job that we're looking to create and over a period of time hire as well is what we call the robot driver. So very similar to drivers for drones. And the reason we're looking for this type of role is it takes time for the robot, once integrated with any kind of AI intelligence, it takes time for the AI itself to learn. For example, to understand the context of the environment that the robot is actually navigating and moving around, basically, on that. So we basically
robot need to adapt as well.
Correct. So we need people to be able to drive the robot around, right? And not just be able to have the robot make decisions and hit people along the way and so on and so forth on that. So that's the first one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? That's a simple one, right? So you want to be a robot driver, you could have a career in that potentially.
Okay, how much does it pay?
Okay, I don't know. We're still looking at that. But it's going to be a fleet of robots, because it's interesting you asked that, is because going back to our concept of a Lego robot, the robot itself will be doing different things. So, for example, it might pick up a UV lamp and position it in one room and leave the UV lamp there, come back out and go on a security patrol, for example. Right? So it's controlling multiple asset classes together.
Is it pretty much like the Amazon robot that is pretty modular and can do different things?
Yes. So it's basically very similar to, they all have a similar shape and form. And so they're kind of rectangular in its look and feel. The main difference is either the AI or, if you made the load. So different, depending on what its purpose is. So if it's a robot in a warehouse and it's carrying pallets of equipment, there might be a requirement for it to be supported up to 1.5 tons, for example. All right. Okay. Or the other difference is where the robot will navigate. So again, if it's in a commercial building, there's carpets. So the wheels on it are different compared to a robot that has to do a security patrol outside in a parking lot, right? Where the surface may not be flat, for example. And that's why on the second job role we're looking at is, most, I guess, people that are building robots today come from a mechanical or electrical engineering perspective. Most of them are not coming from a data scientist or coming from a software engineer and don't have any real AI perspective in this role. So if you look, for example, Tesla, for example, a recent article just came out from Elon Musk that in the traditional navigation platforms, they use a technology called LiDAR. LiDAR is a laser type of navigation. So it sends out a laser and it basically determines the area. So it does kind of a reflective approach of what's happening in this area. It doesn't use like, a camera like on your iPhone to detect your face. So Tesla has moved away from LiDAR, is using OCR, stuff like that. Now, the same thing now is starting to happen in the autonomous kind of robot AGV space as well. So to find engineers in a robot space that have a software background, it's very, very difficult. So the second engineering type we're looking for is people that have a software or platform background, but understand and have some initial basic mechanical or engineering background in electrical engineering as well on that, which is very hard to find. So obviously we work together as a team today, but over a period of time, we see, in the future that this will be one type of engineering where people will need to understand how to program robots. Today you're programming, microservices, DevOps, and you're deploying that as part of the cloud. In the future, you need to deploy that onto a fleet of robots, for example, right?
And who knows that job better sometime with a very specific application, for example, into the shop retail environment than the former retailer themselves, right?
That's a great question.
Right. So I was looking at and same for the security guard, right? Can you imagine having a security guard who could be managing a fleet of 5-10 different robots, right? Of course, his job will change. He will be behind the screen with maybe some controls like a video game, right? But his job will be more efficient, and he wouldn't have to risk himself and walk around so many times. So it's less tiring job. I was looking at the YouTube originals around AI, and they were showcasing these many jobs that are now appearing in terms of logistics, where what used to be completely manual logistic job of people controlling the container machines to move the container from here to there within the harbor is now moving to be an automated job, where actually the whole harbor is forbidden for people to be there. Because there is just one tower control, and there is like 5 guys who used to be the guys pushing the container, and now they are just playing with the controls like a video game and managing these thousands of containers. And so I was thinking, on the other hand, for the pilot, right? They were showcasing this former truck driver, which, of course, obviously truck driver is not a job of the future. And you cannot really be a yoga teacher if you stop driving trucks, right? So the question really is what you can do. And in this documentary, I found amazing opportunity for these people, because they were actually employing exclusively former truck drivers with zero mechanical engineering experience, and they were training them to be able to teach the robot with a simple software, and basically driving on the co-pilot seat. And I find it really amazing, right? That you could reconvert some people who used to be in this industry, who knows deep down all the tasks, all the jobs, all the specifics of this job, and be able to reconvert them.
Yes. So you're spot on, buddy.
Is that what we're talking here?
Yes, we are. And in order to achieve that, we're making an investment, which we're still in the process of determining where we want to launch it. But we are opening up a robot academy here in Thailand. So as part of this, because again, we see the need for the skill sets, and we see the need to build a end-to-end capability. We've done this in Singapore already. So we call it the Race Academy. So it's a race ahead, but it's more focused on the robot side of things. And we have had people that have come to the school because of, number one, their interests, right? They get into robotics and automation and AI on that. And as the business has grown, especially in Singapore, given the high cost of labor, we actually end up either hiring them, or they actually end up being our partner to help us resell, and they start their own robotics kind of shop in a way, right?
Great.
So we're making that investment to kind of reskill and upskill. And I personally think that Thailand has an enormous need for that. And the reason is because the trigger for Thailand, the immediate trigger obviously has been the COVID situation.
Yeah, right.
But if you look into the demographics of Thailand, kind of we talked about, trucks and truck drivers, the jobs going away. Thailand is in the epicenter of Southeast Asia in the sense of the north and south corridor, west and east corridor, right? China all the way down to Singapore. eventually over a period of time, Myanmar to Vietnam, right, all through Thailand. So the logistics of that over a period of time will continue to increase. But the question is, how does Thailand stay competitive? Given, it is also an aging workforce. People don't want to work on low labor jobs anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So there will be an increased need for automation, especially in logistics on that, and especially in last mile delivery. From from point A to point B in terms of warehouses, but then to the shopping malls, and then within the shopping malls or directly into your neighborhood. And what we call is kind of last yard delivery. So there's last mile delivery and there's last yard delivery, right? Last mile is basically to your condo, but from the lobby of your condo to your room is last yard delivery. Or in a shopping mall, you could deliver something to, again, a Samyan Midtown shopping mall, but inside the mall delivery is in-mall delivery. More and more of that will be more automated on that. So in order to kind of reskill, we are making the investment in robot school, basically, on that. We've done that in Singapore. So we have the proven knowledge how to do that properly as well. So we're hoping to do that in Thailand, hopefully by the end of this year. To get
We'd
things
love
up
to
running.
help you with Adaptivity.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
And the way should definitely do that together.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think it's going to be great for the country as well, and it's a new role. My son is definitely interested in doing that as well, right? So like kids can, start to make robots their own. But one final point. I would have
dreamed to do that. I had my technical Lego when I was a kid, but no, I can't. If I were born recently, I could definitely play with that.
Yeah. So come by to our lab. We'll definitely, you've seen it before, John, but we're in the process of repositioning the lab now to make it more of a robot-focused lab. But the final thing, obviously, that we want to kind of share as well is that it's not just about, if you made, the skill sets and the opportunity and the role, but it's also the mindset and the culture, right?
Yeah.
From a Frasers perspective, especially on the digital innovation side, every time we embark on something new, it's all about the people. And one thing we always look for when we recruit somebody, we expect all our colleagues to be the reason that other colleagues come to work, right?
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about teamwork and so on and so forth, but the way that we like to shape that is, are you the reason your colleagues come? Because if you are the reason your colleagues come and they're excited every day to come and see you, right? It means you're working together as a team. It means that if you have issues, you're fixing that together. And it means that when you embark on something new, like, making robots, it's very difficult, right? It's also very expensive to build. So if you mess up, it is a big cost. It's not like a software where you just kind of recompile the code and do a redeployment. We do a rollback. In robots, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
That you make sure that you learn together, right? So I think by doing innovation and something very new, we're also trying to create a culture of collaboration, but holding ourselves accountable for our own behaviors. Because as you program the AI, it's also a reflection of what you think is, do you really tolerate, right? If you don't have the integrity, for example, we have a big debate in this space where how fast should a robot go? So people expect kind of what you said about the Terminator, that should be really fast, right? Technically it can be, but it can also be very dangerous, right? Imagine a autonomous vehicle that carries about 250 kilograms or more coming at you at full speed. That can be pretty dangerous as well. So the person programming the robot must also have a sense of responsibility and integrity as well, because again, it's an IoT that actuates the environment, right? It creates a reaction from its presence there as well. So that's also another thing we keep in mind as we grow the business and grow the team.
Okay, so I never thought, and I don't think my career coach in Chula or in Thammasat gonna tell me, oh, if you like to do mathematics, you should go and apply on Fraser. And I'm really sure, 100% sure that if I'm maybe a mechanical engineer working in a factory right now in Thailand, the HR will never tell me, oh, you're fired, but you can find these robotic jobs in Fraser.
You were spot on.
So what's the advice for people watching this video, even though they don't have this career path? What's your advice to encourage them to maybe consider this type of career in robotics.
Very good.
And maybe a positive message that is more inclusive would be
Sure.
good.
Okay, so that's a great question. So that's the same question I asked myself, right?
Right.
So
right.
I
Because you
come
didn't imagine you would be working on that, right?
in a
What did
property
you
firm.
graduate
No,
from?
no.
What did you graduate from again?
So I have a computer engineering degree, right? And I come. My first company I was working for was FSI, right? So in the banking sector, right?
Right.
And then I moved obviously to, if you make the kind of telecom data center cloud space, right?
Okay.
And then, different opportunities came up and, people were talking about e-commerce and fintech, but I was always of a different view, right? So I'll show you my view for what it's worth and why I moved to this sector.
Okay.
So number one, I looked at the size of the business first. And that's why I realized the potential opportunity on the real estate side, because it's basically hasn't been touched. That's number one, right? Number two, coming from an engineer or tech perspective, I don't believe in, personally, right? I don't believe in businesses that are licensed. So I don't believe in the banking sector. I don't believe in the telecom sector per se, because I feel that in technology, and if you want to innovate, you can't be protected by licensing on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the marginal cost of everything digital will go down to zero at some point, right? And that's
Exactly.
what Jeremy Rifkin is saying with the zero marginal cost society.
Exactly. Right? Spot on. And the third thing that I felt strongly about it, part of the reason I didn't want to go into fintech or I didn't want to go into e-commerce was because I didn't want to go into an environment where there's a lot of technical debt. Right. So if you go into a banking environment, yes, you want to do a wallet and fintech and blockchain, but you have the legacy stuff. And then you also have the license to deal with the regulation as well. So I felt that if I was going to make an impact, I wanted to go in an environment where the industry is growing, right? There is no kind of strong regulation that holds me back, and there's no legacy. And that's why nobody's really kind of heard of PropertyTech so much, right?
Right.
All right, because in the PropTech space, it's kind of what we're doing kind of well. And that's why kind of my role and my team's role were created to make this possible. So my view is it really depends on what you want to do from a career standpoint. But for me, I think every engineer, every tech guy wants to make a difference, right? And we're pressured to deliver in a very short amount of time. If it's a growing business, that's great. But you have to be clear that are you comfortable to also adapt, going back to your keyword, in an environment that traditionally is not supposed to adapt because it's controlled by regulation or there's a licensing behind it. And there's a lot of technical debt that you have to uphold, right? Or you want to go an environment in a different way, which is also risky, I would admit. PropTech is very new. There's no clear boundaries. Nobody's kind of a clear leader, at least in Thailand, from my perspective on that. That's made kind of a new business model has come out. But if you're interested in that, working for a real estate firm is quite interesting on that. But it takes a different skill set. You need to be able to obviously demonstrate value in an industry that, the property prices are going up every single day, right? Why do you need tech, right? I can build a building and be successful and so on and so forth. But if you enjoy being at the forefront of that discussion and that debate, and then having the hands-on approach with limited resources to prove that you can do it, then I think working for a company like Frasers is wonderful. Because, and my fourth point, the reason I picked property and therefore Fraser is the scale. You got to pick a company that has scale, right? And Fraser has that scale globally. And actually, the fifth point that I actually almost forgot to mention is data, right? Which is
immense streams of data.
Immense, right? And what I mean by that is everybody knows in the fintech space and e-commerce space, the cost of any tech business is the cost of the customer acquisition or data acquisition, right?
Yeah, right.
In e-commerce, you got to subsidize it for people to come on your platform. In the property space, there's huge amounts of data that's not been monetized. So in any property, like a building, there's 500 CCTV cameras, right? And none of that has been monetized. So what we are doing is that we are looking at data, right? And we're trying to monetize it, right? And we have a few use cases that we're doing that already in terms of OCR recognition of the license plates and vehicles coming into our premise. And therefore, we're able to reduce the security guards. At the same time, we're able to also predict the traffic flow. But interestingly enough, we're collecting emission data now, right? Next time you come by, I'll give you a demo. We're collecting emission of carbon dioxide coming from the cars. Therefore, we're getting a carbon footprint of the cars coming in. And therefore, this opens up a new business for us if we want to pursue to be a carbon footprint exchange, right? Because buildings exert energy all the time, right? Just from cameras, right? So I felt that, okay, fine, it's good to have no regulations, it's good to have a clean plate, it's good to have being good business, but where am I going to get the data? And if I need to ask for a lot of money to burn and gain data for that, it's just not sustainable from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
But if we're able to utilize data that's been collected, but it just hasn't been converted into a product or a business model, that's huge, right? So I think a lot of property firms as well, to be honest with you, don't realize that this opportunity is there. And that's why you don't hear so much in the PropertyTech space in Thailand, so much on that. But definitely this is what we're doing in Fraser. And yeah, this is why we're working with Djoann, with Get Links and Adaptive to get the word out there that, you know, PropTech is very interesting, right? It's difficult in different ways. So whatever we can do to collaborate, yeah, definitely let us know. And yeah, we're definitely open.
Amazing. So I hope these 5 points, I asked for 1 point, but you got 5. So it definitely seems to be a super exciting team to work with. And you know what? I'm thinking we should actually organize some virtual tour where you guys can take us around over live stream maybe, and we will bring our community of learners with Adaptivity and Get Links to visit what you guys are doing on the live stream. Maybe that can be a good one during this COVID situation. And yeah, I think definitely we understand clearly that robotics job doesn't require an engineering background necessarily, and that more on that the companies like Fraser, but many other as well, are keen on actually developing the skill sets for these people by training them with academies, and this is really amazing because that's really I can see Star Wars really materializing now, and I love Star Wars, and for all the Star Wars lover,
definitely
it wouldn't be as dark as, you know, the Dark Star, Death Star burning, etc. Right? We can see that we're still in our environment, things are still as cool as usual, but now robots are coming in to save us some time, to make the workplace more secure and more resilient to events like COVID-19. Right? Whereas here, actually, robots will help us to protect us from this virus with this UV robot, which is super amazing. I'm really looking forward to get that up and maybe some video cuts, etc., to add that to this podcast and show these people where is it, and also having these jobs opening. Just the last one. So before we understood we have a fleet of robots coming up to do this COVID disinfection. Next 2 years, how do you want to get that up? And just as the last word, you know, how many potential jobs as technical operator of these robots going to be up in Thailand? Just a rough number.
Sure. So right now, obviously, we're growing the business at this point in time. So in terms of jobs right now on the technical side, we're only looking about 2 to 3 at this point in time. But we definitely expect to expand it drastically. Especially originally, we were planning to just deploy the robots in the warehouse space. They help out that e-commerce delivery. But because of COVID now, we're entering different use cases that we didn't think were going to happen this fast. So obviously we're entering the hospitality space. We're entering hospitals as well. Schools was never part of the original kind of focus segment, but that's a huge market now as kids are planning to go back to school. So we're still looking at the numbers, but I think that the day one requirements, so we have a team of roughly almost 10 people today. But we're expanding maybe 2 or 3 people in terms of driving the robots on day one, and we'll see where that takes us. But
so we can imagine maybe 2 years from now it will be more than 10. So maybe 100.
Definitely, maybe not, because again, that's as part of what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to manage the robots with AI as well, right? So as we grow the robot fleet, we're trying to, if you may, build the operations and the command center to control that as well. But we'll see. We'll see. You never know.
Okay, so 10 to 20 potential
along those lines.
Around that, right? So these will be VIP jobs that you can only find in Adaptivity or Get Links.
Yes, we Get Links. No problem.
This is amazing. And I'm glad we start this first episode of the Career Demystification with you. I think this is amazing to see this much happening in South Asia. When I moved in South Asia 7 years ago, I never imagined I would end up working in tech, with the robotics company, and helping them to find people there. This is incredible, right? So there's so much more happening than what we can see on TV. And I'm just so glad to be driving that now with you guys. So yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed today, and we'll do more together in the next coming weeks.
Definitely. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody in the team. Really appreciate your time. Let's do something together. So let's make a difference.
Awesome.